This is R4E, the Reason for Everything podcast with Arjan Peters. I'm your host, Arjan. In this episode, I sat down with Daniel Bartlett. Daniel is a close childhood friend and a law clerk based in Washington, D.C. In this episode, we talk about his passion for sports, the latest with NIL trends, and reminisce on old times. Enjoy this episode of R4E. Let's dive in. All right. Daniel Bartlett, thanks for joining today, and I'm so excited to be catching up with you. It has been way too long.
Dude, far too long. I'm excited to be here, man.
You picked Slow Ride as your walk-up song. That brings me back, we were talking before we started filming here, to Guitar Hero days, but walk me through why that was your walk-up song and what that song means to you.
Yeah, man, it's just, like I said, it dates me back to back in the day playing Guitar Hero in the basement with all the boys. You know, we're out there shouting. Our parents are just like, hey, what are you doing? Like, why are you guys going? Why are you guys sweating? Like, you're 8 years old playing in the basement. Like, no, we're playing Guitar Hero. We're playing Slow Ride. And like, I just love that song in particular, just in terms of its musical composition. Like, it's a beautiful song. It has like meaning behind it. The guitar composition is beautiful in terms of like it's just like a cool song. It's a cool song to listen to, and I love it because you can listen to it in the background of like any like movie, right? So you're putting on a three-piece suit, going around doing like some mobbing, or, robbing a bank, doing like a heist situation. Like, the song fits. Or if you're rocking around, driving around town in your Camaro, drifting around, doing some Fast and the Furious type of activity, like the song fits. So that's what I thought. It's just a great song to walk up to.
I love it. I haven't probably heard it since playing Guitar Hero back in the day myself, so I'm excited to fire that back up in post-production here. But for everyone listening, so Daniel and I have known each other since we were probably like 9 years old, I think. So you moved to the DC area going into third grade. We had Miss Connolly's class together. She was a very strict teacher from the start, but warmed up to us at the end. I ended up having her again later in elementary school. But walk me through. So give the audience a little bit of background. Where'd you grow up, when you moved to the DC area, and then we can maybe jump back into Miss Connolly's class once we get there.
Yeah, so my Virginia story starts in third grade, but before that, moved around a little bit. My dad, he's in the Secret Service, so I was born in Paterson, New Jersey, and I wear that proudly. But I couldn't tell you a thing about Paterson because I went live there for about 6 months. And then we moved to up to Maryland, and then to New York, and then finally landed on Great Falls, Virginia. 8th grade. Second person I met was your cousin Kahan. And everyone here was so warm and inviting. And then we get here, it's third grade. Boom, got Arjan in Miss Connolly's class, and then I think we had her again in 6th grade.
I wasn't sure if you were in that. I can't remember if you were in that class.
Double dippers. got the band back together. But no, and then just really growing up in the area. Like Great Falls, and then going into middle school and high school, and we kind of had the path, right? I love our path, right? Because it starts out in elementary school, and then we go to the rival, quote unquote, middle school and high school, and then we come back together right at the end of that juncture.
Yeah.
with that house basketball. But no, I mean, in terms of just that, going up from Virginia, Langley High School, then went off to North Carolina for undergrad. That was a great time down at High Point University. Southern biscuits, cookout. I'm a big food guy, so that was, it was great. I got to eat my fill, and then I came back to the DMV for law school, and here we are.
I love it. I'm excited to jump into some of those stories there. Running it back to Miss Connolly's class, I remember we instantly had a connection for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that you are a huge Lakers fan. I was a huge Wizards fan, and we instantly had that connection for basketball. So I remember you were probably only 3 feet taller than me at that time when we were in third grade. So I was the point guard, and when we were on the same team on the courts during recess, I was happy. And then when we were against each other, I was just constantly getting blocked on the court. So to your point, I mean, that was the start of our journey there. That was that. I remember we both loved a lot of the same kind of pop culture stuff with Power Rangers and all the other things that kids like. And then the one other experience from third grade that always comes to mind, and my parents talk about, I don't remember the sleepover birthday party that I had for my 10th birthday, where we had 10 of us all down in the basement. And the thing that sticks in my head is he woke up the next day sick as a dog. Do you remember
Oh,
that?
dude. Yeah, man,
We got snowed in.
dude, I get sick, and that's like one of my talking points for later. But I just be getting sick. Like, I remember that party. My mom was just like, "What did you guys do?" I'm like, "We just had like a birthday party."
For anyone listening on audio and not watching the video here, when Daniel just leaned back, he exposed his sweatshirt. Can you
Oh,
flex that for the camera here?
yeah. So the sweatshirt says it's Big Sexy Design Co. This is my boy Mike. He is a graphic designer. Went to undergrad together. And he just one day he was just like, I'm gonna start making merch because Big Sexy was his nickname. And the way I love describing Mike is like, if you just paint me white, that's Mike. Like with like both just big guys. And some people said we're sexy. So we had to rock the Big Sexy merch. And I wear it any chance I get. I have like 30 of his like t-shirt sweatshirts because there's one thing about Dan Bartlett. If a friend's doing something, like I'm supporting,
Perfect testament to that is right here on this show, man.
Absolutely.
So to your point about coming back together for high school basketball senior year, I completely forgot about that until prepping for this. And that was a special couple of months we were playing together. Those some intense games. And that was just such a great crescendo to the end of our like K-12 experience together, I thought.
Dude, it was beautiful because it was like I think you texted me and you're just like, yo, I just drafted you. And I'm just like, Arjan Peters, I'm like, let's go. Like let's have a great time. And like that season was so fun. Like,
So fun.
we were a great team. I don't know how many games we won, but I like to look back and think we never lost, obviously. But no, it was a beautiful thing because I remember I came home and my mom was just like, oh, like how'd like your like house tryouts and like whatever go. And I'm just like, yeah, like I'm playing with Arjan. She goes, Arjan? I'm like, yeah, like you remember Arjan, like remember the dual disc, back in the day, playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And she's like, wow, like that's a crazy like full circle experience. But yeah, no, that was a great season.
I remember we were going into the winter break 0-4, and then we just had a turnaround season. It was a special one, and there's that one picture of all of us on the bleachers that just like lives in my head rent free all the time because I was like peak senior year. We're all into college at the time. We were just going and having a fun time. It was awesome, man.
Dude,
and you kept playing when you went to High Point. You played club there, right?
Yeah, played club there. I don't know if you remember Josh Gibbs, but he came to a High Point. Went to High Point together, I should say. We played club there. And North Carolina is a crazy like place to go to college because they love basketball in that state. Like it's just like a hoop state. So I'm talking every day. We called it Live at 5 every day for 4 years at 5 p.m. to like 7:30. We played pickup basketball, and it was in like so the way like High Point's campus was. We had the cafeteria, the gym, and like the bookstore and like the basketball court all in one building, all like surrounding the basketball court, right? So everyone went there like to hang out. So like, it was like a kind of like a social thing. Oh. And we are in there just screaming our heads off, being absolutely belligerent, like treating every single dribble like it's an NBA dribble. It was one of the most like, it's probably like if I look back, if I had to pick one part about like, college and like what's your favorite part, it was definitely Live at 5.
I've never heard of that. That's pretty wicked. We did not have anything like that in Blacksburg. I know there's a lot of pickup games, but nothing like that kind of culturally center of the campus.
It was something to see.
And then at what point did you decide you wanted to go down the path for law school?
So the law path actually kind of started, I remember it distinctly. I just finished watching an episode of Dragon Ball Z when I lived in Maryland back when I was like 6. And I think like basketball had come on afterwards. And I was like, oh, mom, I want to be in the NBA. Because, I was like, a tall black kid. And I was like, that looks like the next step, right? And she was just like, yeah, but I know your genetics and like, that's not going to happen for you. Like, very, very early. So you can try if you want to, but like, you got to find something that like, you're going to be passionate about. And like, you can like, it's realistic, right? Because like, that's what my parents are. They're very realistic. And that's how like, I kind of like live my life. So it took me like 3 seconds and I was like, all right, well, if I can't be in the NBA, maybe I can represent like 5 to 10 NBA players, and then I can get an NBA salary based on getting a percentage from all of those. I'm like, how can I do that? And she was just like, oh, you should be an agent. And I was just like, oh, all right. So like since I mean I'm not lying to you just for like the sake of a story. Like since like 6 years old, I was like, I'm gonna be an agent. And then I kept telling that to people, and they're just like, oh, well, most agents have law degrees. So that's kind of how that went. And that's the path I'm hopefully trying to take. Like right now is just, it was good. Put my head down, get the grades out, getting to school, boom, 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 check the boxes. I'm just waiting on that last box. I got to check for the bar exam. But yeah, and like I know it's one of those like I hate like I'm not to be like I know people get weird about it. People are like, oh, what do you want to do? Like, how do you know you want to do this? I'm like, I've known literally since like 6 years old. Like, this is what I want to do. So I'm excited to like, be in it right now. And I still have obviously like, years and years to grow and learn. And I'm not there yet. So that's kind of like my like journey for that.
Since you've had that kind of like mission and goal in the back of your head for so long, when you're grinding out those late nights for studying for the bar or going through classes, did it really ever feel like it was a grind or a challenge? Not even challenge. Did it ever feel like it was a burden for you, since it was something you knew you wanted to do? Or what was that like for you, since you just had such a high conviction for where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that earlier. Like people always say like, wow, like it's impressive, like what you've done and like where you are. But like, it's never felt like that to me. Like I've never sat back and been like, wow, I can't believe like I was able to like, get to where I am, just because like I've always known like this is where I'm gonna be. And it's always been like, I want to do this. Like nobody's making me do this. My mom, my dad, they're always just like, hey, nobody's making you like, go to school. Nobody's making you, continue and go to law school and like things like that. Like you can do whatever you want to do. And like in some points in my life, like, I cut hair. So like I've had like moments where I've been like, oh, maybe I just like I can like go and like have a whole like career and like life and just like cut hair and like be very fulfilled and like enjoy that. But I mean, it's always just been like, nah, like this is what I want to do. And like nobody's pushing me to do it. So like, I don't know. I've never had a moment where like I don't want to like, put the work in and grind. Now I've definitely had moments where I was like, I don't want to study. But then, I'm swiftly met with the reality of being like, hey man, you don't pass tests if you don't study. So that's happened for sure. But it's always been like, yeah, my end goal, like be an agent, be a lawyer. Like that's just what we want to do. So I've always had that.
That's wicked. I'm sure there are a ton of people jealous of that. I mean, having that kind of wisdom granted upon you when you were 6 is such a blessing. I feel like there are a lot of people that are probably 30, 50 years your senior that are still trying to figure out what they want to do.
It's great, man.
The branch I want to dive into for a second is cutting hair, because you've been kind enough to help me out in the past. And so at what point did you pick up the scissors, and what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, so this story is funny. I'm actually incredibly cheap, right? My entire life, I've always been like, I got an allowance. My mom's like, what are you going to buy with your allowance? And I'm like, it's going right in the piggy bank, like I'm saving it up. Like I never want to owe people money, which, is ironic considering like, I went to law school and now we owe some people some money, but that's between me and Joe. We'll figure that out later. Well, the whole cutting hair thing, I had just graduated high school. That feeling, you're 18, you're a man, you're out on your own, and you're just like, hey, I'm going to college next year. I'm like, Mom, I'm an adult. And she goes, huh, you know what? You're right. And you know very well that if your mother says you're right and starts pondering, like it's about to cost you something, either time or money, right? So she looks at me and she goes, you know what? Since you are a man, you should pay for your own haircuts. And I'm like, but those are like $20 every week. And she goes, exactly, they're expensive. But you're a man, so go ahead. Like you should be paying for your own haircuts. And I was just like, all right. That's the last time I ever went to a barbershop, because I immediately was just like, nah, that's not for me. I'm not about to pay all this money. So I went, called my grandpa, and he's like, I got the perfect thing for you. He sent me over some Walmart Conair clippers. And then I got on YouTube, just started watching videos, and boom, just started cutting my own hair. And again, I'm like, I cut a lot of people's hair now, but it really like was never the intention to become like a barber for like other people. It was a situation where I'm just walking around college, and you know how college goes, right? Everyone's like leaving their hometown barbers, and everyone's like looking like just dusty for no reason, just because everyone's like, going months in between cuts, only getting cuts on spring breaks and things like that. And people were like, hey, Dan, how are you always like looking clean? Like, where do you go? And I go, oh, actually, I do this myself. And they go, no way, cut my hair. And I was like, okay. And another full circle moment. first person outside of my brother, because like I messed my brother up and like I ruined his hair and like I took him to the shop and I paid for his haircut. But the first person on college that I cut, Charlie Hott,
No way.
yeah, gave him a cut, and everyone was just like, "Oh wait, this is actually decent. Cut me next." And then honestly, like it happened overnight by accident. And yeah, I think when I graduated, I was cutting like 175 people like consistently. Like, and it was, I was getting calls from random people just being like, "Yo, like you cut my roommate," or like you cut my like random friend. Like girls were calling me being like, "Can you give my boyfriend a haircut?" And I'm just like, sure. I don't know like who, like, whatever, like send them to my room, But yeah, it happened on accident, but I don't know. Like I just love it. I love it.
How many haircuts do you think you've given total?
Given total?
Yeah, ever.
Oh man.
Ballpark it for me.
Ballpark it. Let me do some quick math because I mean my senior year, I was given a good like 15 to 20 a week. What was that? Can we like maybe like a cool like couple of thousand? I don't know. Like it's probably less, probably more. I don't I should have done that math. I'll do the math and I'll get back to you.
No worries, no worries. I put you on the spot there. We won't tell Miss Connolly about the little multiplication skills that we're missing there.
That's what they told me when I was studying for the LSAT to get into law school. They're like, "Nah, lawyers are just smart people who can't do math." And the second they told me that, like Arjan, I'm not lying to you. I cannot do basic math anymore. It's like you literally saw it in real time. I can't add, I can't multiply. Pem who?
That's pretty funny. I've never heard that about I've heard other things about lawyers before. Or other jokes, but I've never heard that one.
It's all true. We're horrible people.
As someone who has had great haircuts from you in the past, and then as someone who during the pandemic, I try to cut my own hair, I can attest firsthand how difficult it is to cut your own hair. I offer to cut Bee's hair. I've offered to cut other people's hair, and I've never got taken up on it after showing them the like monk haircut I gave myself at the start of the pandemic. And so glad that grew back. But you're still cutting hair to this day or no?
Yep, I got a cut later on today, scheduled up. That's so my goal really is to like, because technically like I saw my goal is once I pass this exam, then to actually go and like maybe do like night classes or something and like actually get like the barber cosmetology license, just to like really take it to like the next level. Like I want to start like a whole like Instagram for it, and like I don't know if I'm gonna start TikTok for it, because like I tried making TikToks for cutting hair and like they're fun, but I don't know, the risk to not risk to reward, but like the effort to reward for me at least, I was like putting a lot of effort into editing these like TikToks for cutting hair. Like I enjoyed them and people enjoy them, but when you get 100 views, you're kind of just like, all right, bro, like I'm not doing this for that. Like I like cutting the hair, but I'm like I'm not a content creator, and I don't have that in me right now. But who knows, man? Who knows?
Who knows, man? Who knows? You never know. So fast forwarding back to, so you took the bar exam, you're waiting for that to come out, the results for that. What's next steps for you now? I know you're a law clerk now, but what does that kind of next step forward look like for once you get your Dan Bartlett JD, or what is it? You get your, what's the certification called when you're officially
Esquire, ESQ.
Esquire, yeah, ESQ,
Yeah.
Dan Bartlett ESQ. What's next step like for you after that?
So I'll go from a law clerk to like the official like attorney, right? So like people ask you what I do now, like I say like I'm technically a lawyer now, and then I'll become an attorney once I get barred. So that'll be really exciting. Just be able to put ESQ by the name. That's just something like like when you're a young lawyer, you're just like, man, I just want to get that behind me, get that ESQ. But then continue work with the firm I'm at right now. I really enjoy the firm. Like it's a great place. It's letting me do like it's letting me do like pretty much exactly what I want, like what I said I wanted to do, like when I got to law school. It was funny. They were just like, I went to the career counselor, and they were just like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to do intellectual property for a small like firm. And they're like, that's very specific. They're like, good luck getting that. Like that does not happen. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So my boss was just like, is this actually what you wanted? And I'm like, yeah, dude, this is it. And he's just like, oh, all right. Just because like it gives you like, it's a good place to like learn like how to be a lawyer and like how to like really like grow like professionally, because it's crazy. Like well, I'm 25, this is my first like actual job, because I've just been in school my whole life. So like this is my first like career like step. So like I'm pretty excited about that aspect of it. I'm really enjoying it. But like the next steps are really just like grind it out, work at this firm, try to build like clients. And then like, so the thing with like sports law, that's crazy. It's not really like a thing, right? So there's like, like bankruptcy law, like they have like a bankruptcy code, right? Intellectual property law, we have like there's a trademark law, copyright law, patent law, like there's like hard law. For sports law, it's basically just like taking different areas of law, like employment law, labor law, intellectual property law, and then the clients are athletes. That's what makes it sports. So, trying to like, just find like new clientele that are athletes. And like, I don't know what you've seen with this whole, I'm sure you've seen with the whole NIL stuff, like with all the college athletes being able to like actually profit off their like, whole name, image, and likeness. Like, not to go on like a law tangent, but like that's
No,
like
please do.
but like that's like the craziest thing right now. Like, and it's like happening in real time in like my own like in my industry. So like that's pretty cool. So that, but like not only the fact that like, yeah, it's finally about time like these athletes are able to like profit and like make money off of their names, their images, and like their brands. But it also opens up a whole new pool of athletes that like lawyers and agents can service and be like, hey, like make sure you're being smart with these decisions. Like don't just take like the first like Nike deal you get for whatever reason, because like how contracting goes, and like we've seen like people go on like ad nauseum about like bad contracts entering into, and like people like people owning the athlete without getting the athlete their just compensation. So that's really like my like passion for it, like kind of like comes out there. Like I get excited when I talk about it, but that's kind of where it comes from. Like just making sure like people like athletes and like artists too are just kind of like, I don't know, like taken care of, I should say, because I feel like a lot of people take advantage of them, not take care of them.
Yeah. Have you guys seen a lot of issues with the NIL situation so far? I feel like that's, to your point, probably spurred up a lot of interest in business from there. But how's that kind of transition been going for the kind of law world as well as for the athletes that you all have seen?
Well, the athletes is the crazy part. You get to see in real time. Like you get to see that like on the media. Like, I mean, the best example I think is this UNC has this player, Armando Baycott. He's like, one of the best like college basketball players out right now. I think he's doing like a fifth or sixth year coming back to UNC. And he broke it down because originally, like, I was ignorant and I was just like, why would you go back? Because he had just played in the national championship last year. And I'm like, why would you go back after playing in the Natty? Like you have like your draft stock's pretty high, right? And then he broke it down like on a LinkedIn post, if somebody broke down his decision, and he's just like, no, like because of NIL, I can make over $1 million in endorsements being like the star basketball player for UNC, as opposed to my draft stock right now. I was like not going to get drafted. So that'd be a huge gamble career-wise, right? So in real time, you're seeing players make decisions to stay in college. And, this is, again, good for the sport of college basketball, which I think college basketball was like kind of iffy. The NCAA was just kind of like, wow, we don't want to pay these athletes. Like, we want to keep the money for ourselves. But I mean, now you're getting better players staying in college, right? And not just like jumping to the league. Now, obviously, like, your top 15 players, top 25 players are going to leave because they're looking at, multi-million-dollar contracts and Gatorade deals, Nike deals. Like no one's ever going to take that. Like no, I love college basketball, but no college basketball is ever going to like replace that. But like you see like Armando is I think a great example of being like, okay, now I have a career decision to make and I can stay in college and make money and capitalize on NIL in real time, as opposed to like, gambling with the NBA route. And I think that's the part that like you're going to see from like the athlete perspective, from like the law perspective. It's all like gray right now because there's no hard rules on it right now. It's a lot of like suggestions and being like, we're not going to punish athletes if they do this, but what does that mean? Right. And there's no like hard like rule, like, okay, you're not going to pay the athlete, but they can kind of profit off their own thing. So like the level I've seen of that is like, or even you've seen it at the big news is with like the Texas football players, right? So like they'll be able to just go like, okay, we're gonna give each lineman like $250,000, and it's like, wait, are you guys paying them $250,000 to play football? It's like, no, we're not paying them that. Like that's from a donor. A donor is just giving them this money because they support the program, right? And like that's just them go out there and getting their own bag. Like it's not necessarily we're not giving it to them. Now again, like people fall like people fall many different ways on that. And like, I have 180'd my view on it. I used to be in the camp of just like, oh, like you're getting a free education and like you can go to the league, like blah, blah, blah. But like, that was me looking at it from like only looking at it through the lens of like a Zion Williamson,
Yeah.
because like he has a guaranteed, like, I mean, he knew since he was like, 15 years old that he'll be in the NBA by the time he turns like 19, right? But like, the players down at like, whatever level, I'm not going to name names on colleges because I respect every single college's university and their like level of athletic prominence. But like, some random school and who knows where, like that athlete can make like, at a random school, like a no-name school, for whatever reason, that athlete can make a lot of money in their own like local town, right? Because it's a college town. You go on Main Street, you put that athlete's name there, people are going to love that. So I don't know. That's the part of like, that's just like kind of like my like high level view on NIL, but like the to make a long story short, like it's just a gray area right now. It's the Wild West, I should say. That's how people like to say it.
That's awesome. There's just so much there that I'd love to continue to discuss. I'm curious from your seat, and this might be total tinfoil hat conspiracy theory here, and I'm not 100% sure when this episode will drop. So right now we're getting into the Elite Eight of March Madness. The team skew is just so crazy. Tons of upsets. It's probably the strangest assortment of teams in a Sweet 16 Elite Eight that I remember seeing in a NCAA tournament in my lifetime. Do you think any of that has to do with the new NIL rules and the fact that players from Florida Atlantic or players from Princeton can stay in school longer because they're getting paid from donors, because they're able to get sponsorships and be creative with how they're staying in school without having to play for 4 years and make that decision? So you have guys that might be willing to enter, or I guess, stay in school longer because they're getting paid from the NIL perspective. Do you think that has anything to do with these crazy upsets we've been seeing?
Oh, absolutely. I think that does. I think there's so many factors on why, like literally making my bracket this year, I was just like, I have no idea who's gonna like come out of here, because you look at the players and you look at the stats, right? You look at Houston, they're a 1 seed, right? And then you look at who they played, and they played like one other like top 25 team. So you're just like, all right, like it's a 1 seed, but like how strong is that 1 seed, right? Then you look at Duke, like I'm a Duke fan, so like I'm usually pretty biased for them, but they love to let me down. So I'm just like, all right, we're gonna give them like a solid run, but not like the best run, because you never know. But to the point of like NIL, I actually there's two branches to it. First, like on NIL, right? If you are incentivized to stay in college and you have a chance to like stay and play, then that just makes college basketball stronger, right? Because that's why, like, in my opinion, that's why your Dukes, your UNCs do better and like have been like these storied like franchises, or not franchises, but college programs, because UNC, like, you don't sign up to go to UNC and go to the NBA in 1 year. When you go there, you're just like, I'm here to be a Tar Heel for like 3 or 4 years, right? So that's why they have like more senior guys in their team, and it's just the name of the game. If you play college basketball for 3 years, you're better than the person who's played it for 1 year. Not necessarily a talent perspective, but like you're not going to fold under pressure in like a late tournament run because you've been there before. Like, it's just experience beats experience can rival like talent. I should say, like, every now and then you're going to get a Zion who's just like, no matter what you throw at him, like he's just going to be better. But I mean, he didn't win his natty. Like, he lost just to like more experienced guys. But like, I think that NIL definitely incentivizes college programs to become stronger. But I also think players are becoming smarter. There's this guy, I believe his name is Jalen Williams. He's a rookie on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And he was not on like, I mean, he was obviously on like NBA scouts, but like for like the common like, viewer, like I didn't know about him until I was watching Thunder highlights one day because, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was going crazy. I'm just like, who is this? This rookie is killing him. Like, who is this guy? And he was talking about like recently on like one of maybe his podcasts, him and his brother, they didn't go to like, your Duke, Kentucky, Kansas's, like they went to like smaller schools because they were just like, you go where you're needed and like where you're going to fit in, as opposed to just trying to go to like the best school, quote unquote, best school that you can go to. So I think that's strengthening the college basketball realm in the sense that players are smarter now. So I say like this is twofold. Players are with the NIL, they're getting their money, so they stay longer. But then I also think players are picking better schools, not just on pedigree, but also on fit. So it just makes more well-constructed teams. Because, I mean, literally, like, if you had told me this was going to be like the Elite Eight or wherever we're at in the tournament, like at the beginning of the tournament, I'd be like, no, you're crazy. Like just looking like there's none of like, the big boys are in there. And like even like last year with like Oral Roberts, they got went to like the Final Four. Like last year was the first year I've ever heard of Oral Roberts, like no shade on the university or the program. It's just like, yeah, it's, it's not like, like a blue blood. But yeah, I definitely think that, I mean, we've seen it like in real time. I think it's as NIL gets stronger and stronger for athletes, like college basketball is going to get, this might be a hot take, but I think college basketball is going to become stronger with athletes making more and more money. Cause now there's more of a reason to stay,
100%. How do you think that, I guess, ripples out to the NBA or to other pro sports leagues? So you probably argue the same thing for college football and the NFL, that dynamic changing as well. How do you think that ripples to the pro leagues, and what's that gonna be like from a lobbying perspective, from a talent generation perspective? How do you think that's gonna shake out?
Well, you've already kind of seen it with the NBA is getting more creative, right? So and people like to credit LeVar Ball with his JBA, with making his league to rival this. But I think it's a combination of that, and then with NIL, the NBA is like, okay, well, we want to get these players, because I mean, if you're an NBA executive, your goal is that everyone's looking for the next Giannis, right? Yeah. Right. Looking for a 17-year-old like genetic freak that you can make into literally an NBA champion MVP player, right? That's just name of the game. Like people, for whatever reason, like older players get stigmatized when it's weird. Like Buddy Hield, like he's a very solid, like borderline all-star level, like NBA player, like maybe at his peak borderline all-star, maybe not now. But like, he was like a 3 or 4 year player, and people were like, we don't know about this Buddy guy, which is kind of crazy in my mind, because it's like he just showed you like natural progression for like 3 years at the college level. So obviously he gets better. But again, like people just love that raw talent. So for the NBA, what I'm seeing them currently doing, and I apologize for these sirens. I apparently live next to a fire station. But like you see this raw talent, and what they're doing with the developmental league, right? So kind of like taking a page out of Major League Baseball's book of upping their minor league team, because the NBA is kind of ignored. I don't want to say ignored, but they really haven't put a lot of effort into their developmental league. Like it used to be the D League developmental league. Now it's like the G League, because they got like the Gatorade deal. And they're really working on like finding young players, and now they're giving them like, I think like, $100,000 to $300,000 to play basketball at 17 years old. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Be directly affiliated with an NBA team, and then you still keep your eligibility to enter the draft. So like if you look at like draft big boards, it used to just be like, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky. Now it's like Duke, Lithuania, the G League Ignite, and then like Kansas. And like, it's different from like 3 pools now. So I think that the NBA, and all my like references are like NBA specific, because I'm just like more like a basketball guy.
Yeah.
But the NBA is responding by upping its developmental league, which I think is just good for the sport as a whole, because like you're going to see more talented players with raw talent getting NBA training from day one, from like 17 years old. That's why like Ben Simmons won Rookie of the Year, because he had a whole year of NBA training, and then when he was like technically a rookie, like he was just like a whole year ahead of his like peers. So that's why like you're going to see more and more of those type of situations, which I think is just great for the sport.
Absolutely. In the spirit of the Reason for Everything podcast, I think about in this conversation, athletes like LeBron or KG or Kobe, people that came straight from high school to college or high school to pro ball for many reasons. And some of them you have to imagine was for financial reasons and being able to go back and support their family. And so it's interesting to think back how those courses could have, or how their respective paths could have changed if they would have been able to go get $250,000 from Duke or $250,000 from Ohio State to go and play college ball, as opposed to going straight to the NBA, to have that time to develop and to have that time. I mean, that's neither here nor there, but it is an interesting kind of thought exercise for how paths could have played out if the current regime was in place in 2000 or 2005.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And even on some things, there was a football player, I'm blanking on his name. I want to say it was like Clarence something, but he was a fantastic running back, right? Like he was like it was day one, he was 18 years old, and they're just like, oh, he's going to be like the best player in the NFL, right? And he had an insane season. I think he played for Ohio State. I'm really blanking on his name. Like he's, any football fans know exactly like who I'm talking about. But anyway, he was like imagine just like I don't know, Saquon Barkley, like, and at 18 years old,
Mhm.
like just absolutely destroying competition. Like it wasn't even close. Like everyone's like, he's a lock for like number one pick, like in the draft, right? But he was only 18. And you know how in football you need to play, I believe it's 3 years before you're draft eligible, because you know it's a more physical sport. They don't want kids going and playing the NFL because they'll literally just get like crushed, right? Like basketball is different because you know you can just be faster than the old heads and like they won't like hurt you or anything like that. But like football, like if a 10-year veteran lineman like tackles you at 18, like you're breaking something. Like it doesn't matter who you are. But anyway, like this dude was just like a freak. And he like ended up suing. I think it was he sued the NCAA or the NFL. I think he sued the NFL. Clarinet, I believe it was. He sued the NFL and he was just like, why am I not allowed to play? He's like, I'm obviously a generational talent. Like, I got a family to support. Like, you're gonna draft me anyway. He's like, just take me now and like let me like, make you guys money. Like people want to watch you play.
Yeah.
Let me do that. So like I'm just thinking about like in terms of like if these rules were in place, then he wouldn't have had to waste all of that like legal trouble while he was like making his like career, because no people will go like back and forth on it, but there's a reason like why he's not considered like one of the best like running backs. Like people don't know too much about him outside of his lawsuit, because once you get politics involved, like that kind of just like follows you and like it stains, quote unquote stains your career. And he never really got to like become this like generational talent that he was like on pace to be because of this whole thing. So if NIL is in place, he doesn't have to go the legal route and he can just focus on playing ball, making money, support him, support his family, and then go to the NFL when like he's eligible. So that's kind of to your point. Like I think we're gonna see like less stories, less like bad. Like it's not a bad story because like ultimately like he made a career and like he made a living. But like just like what could have been, if like that wasn't like behind him.
Have any of the guys that went either straight to the league or skipped the college ball level, have any of them spoken out across any of the leagues that you've heard of in support of the NIL or against it?
Outside of the general, like, I mean, LeBron's obviously pro because he's pro athletes, like whatever, like anything that is involved with athletes. That's actually a good question. I have not actually like looked at like what specific like out of high school players have said. I'd be interested to hear because I mean, like even like Dwight Howard probably has like a hot take on it.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah, I love Dwight. But yeah, no, that's a good. I'd have to circle back on that because I don't want to like put words in their mouth. I have not heard anything from them.
Last conversation on this NIL or last thought on this NIL conversation, and then I have some other stuff I want to tackle. The upcoming big player out of Sierra Canyon. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. Something Bronny James. Any I'm just kidding. For Bronny, any thoughts on how that's all going to shake out for him, given kind of his timing of coming into this new NCAA regime or going straight to the league, or how do you think that's all going to play out?
How NIL is going to play out for him?
Yeah, how do you think that's all going to shake?
Oh, I mean, he's already gotten. I mean, he has a phase deal. Like he's like a phase athlete, like like a phase like the gaming.
Yeah, Face Clan.
Yeah, like phase clan. Like he's already a phase clan athlete. I think he was on like ESPN's. Like I mean, everyone's you can with that NIL deal. But I mean, like that's LeBron's son. Like he's gonna get any. I mean, any smart, reputable brand is gonna be like, "Do you want to represent us?" And Bronny is gonna be like, "Let me ask my dad and Rich Paul," and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, dude, make a name for yourself." Like that kid is so blessed and so unfortunate at the same time. Just like being like LeBron's son. Like it's crazy, like because I mean you're getting compared to like the a top 2 player of all time. Like that's insane. And we saw it with Jordan's sons. Like they were solid Division I basketball players, but they weren't Michael Jordan. So everyone's like they were horrible. It's like they weren't bad. It's just like Michael was insane. Like, and Bronny is like, I mean, you've seen all right, people are like, oh, he's too short. And like, I saw a picture of him the other day. Like, I think he's like 6'4", 6'5", which is like very tall for a point guard, which is what he plays. So I don't know. I'm excited to see his career unfold. At the end of the day, like it's a kid playing ball. So like, you love to see it. And like, he seems to be happy. He seems to be wanting to do it. And obviously he has like the support of like LeBron and like his whole family. But like NIL wise, like, I mean, he's gonna have. I mean, he always would have had whatever like deal he wanted. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's such like an enigma of a of a player, but like again, like at this time, like it's kind of crazy. Like it's just gonna like I don't know, sky's the limit for him, and like I only wish him the best, to see like him getting whatever he can get out of the game.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting case study because I mean it's probably he's probably going to be the most famous college athlete because is there still a 1 year requirement for the NBA?
Yeah, so it's 1 year. I think it's either 1 year out of high school or like 19 or not 19. It's like it's 1 year out of high school, so you can do that like through the G League. You can go overseas, or you can just sit out a year. Like some players are just like, yeah, I'm good enough that I don't even need to play for a year, and like they sit out. But obviously, a lot of them just are like it's just easier to go to college or go play overseas, like LaMelo did. But yeah, dude, I don't know who's more famous, like him, like Bronny, or like LaMelo Ball. Because like we've seen Bronny or known about Bronny since he was literally born.
Yeah.
And then, like I mean, like I was talking to somebody the other day about like LaMelo, and I'm like, dude, I literally watched this kid since he was like 14 years old, and now he's like 20, and like I've seen this guy's like entire basketball progression. Like it's wild. Like just like the access we get. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. We get so much access to like athletes and like celebrities' lives, but it's wild.
For anyone that's not a basketball fan, we both apologize for the last however many minutes. But time back to your day to day now, I guess, because we could probably keep going on that for another 2 hours. Time back to your day to day now. Do you have any like goal or you've always been a goal oriented person, obviously. Do you have any ideal person you'd want to represent, ideal group that you'd want to represent? I know you're talking about kind of the nexus of the different types of law and the athlete that creates sports law or music law, but any ideal person you'd want to represent?
Ideal person I want to represent? That's a hard question just because like all my favorites, like they all got agents and they all have managers already, right?
Things change, Dan. Things change.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna go in there and be like, nah, like I can offer you more than Rich Paul can. No, I don't. Can I answer it in the sense of like the next like era, right? The next, I want to be a part of that next generation of like ball players and rappers, and like kind of get my hand and like help them out.
Yeah.
Like the whole like when you ask people like what do you want to do, like be an agent, and like I ask like agents and I'm like, how do you like get to where you're going? And they're like, well, there's two routes. Either you become a legal expert, right, and like, you become really good at an area of law. So like my area of law I'm trying to become like an expert in is like intellectual property. So I can go to an agent and just be, or I can go to an athlete or an artist and just be like, look, like for musically, we're gonna get your copyrights like set in stone. Like you're gonna be good to go. Like all you gotta do is focus on your music. Like I got everything else. Like legally, don't worry about it. And like athlete wise, like we're gonna work on your brand. Like you go hoop. We're gonna make sure your logos, your slogans, and your name like is protected. Right. That's why I want to be able to like go to them and do that. And they say the second way. So that's the first way. You become an expert. And they say the second way is LeBron James, and that's just how it is. Like that person who's coming up. Like you play ball with them. For whatever reason, and then they make it, and then they're just like, all right, like you've had my back, you come with me, right? Now I don't know. I play with one guy, he's in the NBA now. But like, like I won't sit here and say like we're like, close friends. Like we play like a season together, so I won't say his name out of respect for him because I'm not trying to like get anything off of him. Like he's like doing his thing. But I don't know. One like I really don't have like a name, Well, we'll be cocky. I want to be Kendrick Lamar's agent because one of my favorite rappers. I love Kendrick. And I want to represent from basketball wise. So one of my favorite players. I want to represent. See, the thing is like I want to represent like AD, right? Because like I'm a Lakers fan and like I love Anthony Davis. I love his game. But like he's got LeBron's agent. So like maybe I'll go work for Clutch Sports and be like, yo, like, let me talk to him.
Do you think that there's any component of representing these folks that has to do with proximity? Like, do you think that the people out in LA have the upper hand from a sports agent's perspective just because they're kind of in the mix on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. That was one of the big things when I was like starting school in DC. And everyone's like, why'd you come to DC? And I was just like, oh, this is like my backyard, my backyard. Like, this is where I grew up. Like, I'm comfortable here. And there's like, 6 like fantastic law schools in DC. So I literally applied to like all of them. And I was just like, wherever I get in, I'm going. But when I was talking to one of my professors, he's really big in the sports world. He's like, I mean, he's a monster in the sports world, right? Like people like respect him, and like he's written so many books and treatises, articles. Like he gets quoted like on ESPN, and he was like kind of one of like the leaders on this whole, on like the he's a big leader in like the race and sports conversation. And I don't know if you remember the whole Brian Flores incident. When that came out, like he had, I think, like 40 interviews in like 2 weeks, because people were just like, he's like the guy you go to, like we're talking about that. But he would tell me, he's just like, hey, like if you want to get into the sports game, he's like, DC is growing, right? It's a big city, or big like ego city, I should say. Not physically, but like, it's growing in the sports and entertainment world, but like it is not there yet. He's like, you need to go to New York or LA. Like that, those are the 2 big markets that you got to go to, that because that's just where everything happens. Everything is centered around those 2 cities. And we're kind of seeing it now entertainment wise. Like you're seeing it, everyone's moving to Austin. And like, the comedy scene is like massive there. So like that's kind of like the next like, city, like that's going to kind of on the come up. But proximity is a major thing, because then, like I'm not going to randomly walk into, like, I mean, I might walk into like Shy Glizzy, or like, no, I was about to say Rui Hachimura, but now he's a Laker now, so he's over in LA. But like, I'm not gonna walk
Brad
into,
Beal.
you said what?
You're not gonna walk into Starbucks and see Brad Beal.
Hey, there was a possibility. Actually, I walked into a Ralph Sampson. You know Ralph Sampson?
Yeah.
NBA legend. I said that's somebody. I said that's like 20 people, and they're like, who's Ralph Sampson? And I'm like, my man is in the Hall of Fame with multiple NBA titles. I'm like, you guys need to get your basketball knowledge up. But he's like, he's retired. He's been retired for like 20 years. But like, you don't walk into like if you're in LA and New York, like you might walk into somebody much more like you're more likely to, and then that random conversation turns into a meeting, and then it turns into like a deal or something like that. Like that's just kind of like networking, like natural networking. So yeah, I think proximity is a big factor. But also like in the same vein, like the way the world's becoming now, like I mean, look at us, like sure, we actually are physically located to each other, but like we can communicate via Zoom like very easily, and have like full conversations like on all of our social media platforms, like you can text each other, like things like that. So I think that gap is closing in.
100%. So to that, do you see yourself sticking in DC then for a bit, as that gap closes, as you're going to be able to kind of stay connected to folks wherever they are, just given technology these days? Or what are you thinking? I know you're still waiting and there's still a lot in the air for you, but what's like I said, you're a goal-oriented person. What's your heart telling you right now?
Oh, heart, like I will 1000% have a California license plate within like the next couple, like five-ish years,
Really?
Yeah, dude, I've been out there a couple of times. My mom's out there now, and like every time I visit, I'm just like, I gotta get out of here, because like I'm a warm weather person. Like my bones feel good. I need sunlight, to like combat, like sunlight's just great for you. And like I love that. Just being outside, and like you can do that a lot more in California, because like again, like it's growing up here, like we've definitely seen worse winters, growing up. And like it's getting kind of milder now, but I mean, like 70, 75, like that's like my sweet spot, because I can wear a sweatshirt and I can wear shorts, like that's like the weather I need to be in. But then also like, the career aspect of it, like I said, like it is growing more, online based, but at the end of the day, like you can't, like brick and mortar is like always going to be a thing. And like, you can't beat like a face-to-face conversation. But now for like the time being, like, it's just, like I said, everything's kind of up in the air right now, like career wise, in terms of just like, passing this test, got full confidence in myself. I think I got it done this time, so I'm pretty excited about that. And then the funny thing is with the place I'm working at right now, it's actually fully remote. So like, yeah, so like I can do this from wherever. So, obviously there's a time difference to account for in California, but I definitely like see myself working here for a good time. Like I really do enjoy it. So I'm not as like career, like in terms of like career wise, like the place I work at, like I'm very comfortable. So like, I'm not really like looking or anything like that. But like geographically, like I definitely like California, like I definitely want to move out. I want to try it, because I think it's one of those things like my mom, she just moved out there. She called me and my brother, like when I was a senior at High Point, and she was like, "Is it okay if I move to the West Coast?" And I'm like, "You're a grown woman. Like, do whatever you want." She's like, "What do you like?" Because she's always like her whole life, she's always been like, "I want to move to California. I want to move to California." And like, I'm a big like anti-regret guy, right? So like, I never want to like look back and be like, man, like I wish I had moved to California when I was in my 20s, just like experience it. Like, cause that's like, she doesn't kick herself too hard about it because like, she's happy with her life and like how things have turned out. But she would like literally like was about to sign a lease out in California when she was like 18 years old. And then she was just like, nah. And then just stayed in Queens, So like, but yeah, no, that's definitely where I'm going to try it. And if I hate it, I hate it and I'll move back,
There's only one way to know.
Exactly.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. My last rapid fire question for you. Do you have any advice you'd want to give to that, 6'1" third grader in Miss Connolly's class that you were?
Stop eating so much McDonald's. But no, that's a whole nother thing. In terms of like life advice, career advice.
However you want to take it. Yeah.
Honestly, just kind of like, yeah, it took me a while to become like sure of myself and like confident in my own abilities. Like that's like my biggest thing that my mom always says, like college was good for me. Like, did I learn some stuff? I mean, yeah, but like it's college, like, like I'm not gonna sit here and say like I learned how to be the next American scholar. Like it's, it was 4 years of growth, right? And those 4 years of growth for me were just becoming more confident in myself, becoming like more articulate, being able to like express myself. So kind of just like if I can get some of that sureness like in me younger, then like I would enjoy like things more. Like and it's like not necessarily letting things like affect me and like bother me, right? Because like nowadays, like I can go and I can see people, I can hang out and like I have a good time, I have good conversations with people, like I can be social and like I can be like everyone likes to be liked, right? Like, it feels good. But back in the day, like I used to be like, oh, like I used to just think about things too much. And like you get to a point where, and again, I'm only 25, so like I definitely don't have all the life experience in the world, but like things do not matter as much as I thought they mattered back when I was younger, right? Yeah. So like it was a big emphasis on like my parents were a big emphasis on like getting good, good grades because my mom was like, oh, you're smarter than like a B, and like I was like, I'm not like, I appreciate you for believing in me because my mom skipped 2 grades, like she was a genius, like she was just like real smart, and like my brother like would try to fail tests and like graduate with like a 3.7 like in high school, right? Like I worked for my 3.1 in high school, all right? Like I grinded for that. And when I went to law school, it's all like type A people, they're just like A's. Like, what'd you get? And I'm like, I got that B. And they're just like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, sorry. I'm like, this is my A. Well, this is my best case scenario, like I know myself. I know I work hard. But like I'm not a brainiac, and like, shout out to people who are, good for them. But I know myself. So yeah, kind of like that's what I would tell myself when I was younger, just being like, hey dude, like your lane, stay in it and like just dominate your lane. Because don't let like outside factors like drive your happiness, I should say.
I love that. Dan, you're a rock star. I'm excited to see how the next couple months, couple of years shake out for you. I'll see you very soon. I didn't realize how close we are, like to your point, proximity wise. So we'll have to link up here soon. And Kendrick, if you're listening, you've got a new agent ready to represent you whenever.
That's gonna come back to bite me in the butt.
No. Much love, Dan. I appreciate you hopping on, and I'll talk to you soon, man.
I'll see you. Thank you.